I came down here 4 years ago to look at this piece of property, which we call Veridea. It's about 1,200 acres that had been around for a decade and a half.
Sure.
You know, the deal had kicked around. It's probably my legacy because it's so big, you know. And I've already picked a few spots where I want the rock with my name on it someday.
Yeah, of course,
like
of course.
you
I
know?
saw, what was that at the one of the groundbreakings, this big thing? I saw you on kissing that thing, man.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I saw you're in.
I may be getting a little stuck to this place down here. I put a lot of time and energy in here. And the reason I do is because it's necessary. It's not because my team's not the best team, my engineers aren't the best engineers. It's necessary to sit in this barbershop with you today. I flew down yesterday, not just for this, but I came down because of this invitation, because of transparency. I want to be able to get on your podcast and I want to be able to talk to the people of Apex and the other listeners.
Hey, I'm about to go level up. I cannot settle for nothing. I never been regular. Always knew I could do better. I finally made it this far and I'm not looking back. Later to see all the time that I put in. Now me and the money are way too attached. Still repping 919. The city is mine and I put it all on the map. Coming for what I deserve. I put in the work. Now I'm about to level up.
Tell me if I got this right, all right? Let me paint this picture for my audience here. So it's the 1970s, right? We're in the 70s, and young Joseph Graziose is born and raised Glen Cove, Long Island, and he's looking across that water, and every day he's seeing that skyline from New York City. I mean, it's one of the most inspirational skylines in the world. And he's seeing that every day. It's the 70s, and Glen Cove is just taking off right now. So this is starting to, boom. We've got capital flowing everywhere for development. People are starting to stretch out to the suburbs. And young Joseph is not just watching this happen. He decides to get involved. And so he gets into construction. I mean, ground up, get it out the mud kind of a thing. And you work your way up, and then you take the big risk. You scrounge up money to set off and build your own company. One house, one spec house anywhere you can find a piece of land in Long Island. You build a spec house here, a spec house there. One house leads to several homes. Several homes leads to luxury homes. Now your name is getting known all across the county. People are hearing about you. You built a reputation for yourself. Your son is learning the business, and the phone rings. It's 2007, and you get the call from the big corporation. They want you, they're going to put the big guns behind you. They want you to head up some of their projects, and you take that risk again. And you move on, even from the company you built with your son. He's learning the ropes there. You take the risk, RXR, you join. Next thing you know, you're building with some of the most luxurious brands that we know in this world. Ritz-Carlton, you're developing your Inner Harbor. I mean, things don't go exactly as planned, but you make it happen. And because of that, you get more deals, and you're developing more. You're developing right in your own backyard, Ritz-Carlton. And you get a call from the city of New Rochelle. They're looking for a master developer. They choose RXR, and now the kid that was looking across the Long Island Sound at the skyline is actually building the skyline now and developing communities. You are sitting at the table now with your son. I mean, he's the president now of RXR. You showed him the play, and he really ran with it, right? And now he's the president, and you guys are sitting back at the kitchen table, and you're playing Monopoly with the real map, and you've developed communities, you've built towns, you've done things people have never had the chance to do. But yet you still find the time and you come and talk to the kids in North Carolina in the schools. You spend time with the leaders here. What's really going on? What's really happening here, Joe? Tell us what's really happening. We want to understand the man.
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. And I do appreciate hearing some of my story and some of my background. As I may have said to you, and I'm not ashamed of it, very humble beginnings. My mom was a waitress, and I was a busboy at 12 years old. After school, I went and bussed tables, worked with my mother for a couple bucks an hour. Times were tough. But we learned as a family to stay together within our neighborhood. Now, I grew up in a neighborhood in Glen Cove. Back in those days, the houses were $10,000, and you didn't lock your door. But Natalie and Lou next door, or Steve and Jane next door, you just went in their house and got an onion if you needed an onion. I mean, that's the way we grew up,
Wow.
you know?
Community.
Yeah. And the next big step in my life is I went to work for a mentor of mine that's passed away. He made a lot of who I am. His name was Ralph Peixoto. He owned a company called Glenhead Contracting. And from the time I was 15 till I was 19, I worked for him while trying to get through high school and you know, Saturdays and Sundays. And he was my inspiration in the sense of he was a home builder, a big general contractor in New York City. He had all these plays and all these tentacles out to some of the big guys and got a lot of the big work, right? And he was like my dad a little bit, well, my uncle.
Yeah.
And Ralph and I did some crazy stuff in the business. He had about 50, 60 people. And I'm 14 years old, 16 years old, driving dump trucks into the city and, you know, doing all this crazy stuff and working. And he saw something in me, you know, and he was like, you know, someday, you know, you're going to be that guy. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was a foreman running a concrete crew in New York City, right? And it all was about my ability to communicate with people, get people to work, but have a good plan, right? And give back the respect. And the funny story is I was 19 and I went into Ralph, and Ralph had a son, still does, Frank. And I knew in my heart of hearts, Ralph wasn't giving me this business, he's giving it to Frank, right? No matter how damn good I am, you know? So I said to Ralph, I said, and I kid you not, I was making $3 an hour back then. And I said, Ralph, I want $10 an hour and I want dental. He goes, dental? You know, like that, you know? So I give you the $10 an hour, but you ain't getting dental. You don't have good teeth anyway.
Yeah.
And I said, no, Ralph, I said, I'm going to move on. And my dad had went to an excavating company. And I met with those folks and I joined my dad in that excavating company. And right around then is when I saw what I was doing with Ralph, what I was doing with this excavation company. And I said, there's no reason I can't do this by myself, you know? And my dad was nervous about it, you know? I went out and found a couple $100,000 at the time, you know, borrowed some money, bought some bulldozers, built some, you know, equipment, et cetera, and that was called J. Graz Inc., okay? And J. Graz Inc. ended up being probably one of the 5th largest excavation, concrete, and development companies in the Long Island area, you know, and I did it basically, you know, from nothing, but taking big risk.
That's a huge part of what I wanted to talk to you about today, because that's what we talk about here on the show, is about overcoming those limiting beliefs. You know, there are like these invisible rules that, you know, you can't do that. You know, I talked to my mother, and she says, oh, you know, they're building those townhomes down the road, or, you know, they're building this and that. And I said, well, who is they, Mom? And she's like, I don't know. You know, I don't know who this they, you know, somebody rich. And I said, I'm they, you know, I'm they, we can do this. And so, you know, what was it that made you believe above and beyond? I'm sure playing, you say your dad, people telling you you're doing too much, you're not ready for this yet. What was it that made you believe that you could do it, even without the track record of, being in that industry?
I think because from a young buck and going through my time with my mentor, Ralph, and some other people, I grew a relatively large network of people that actually were inspired by me. And my willingness, my desire to be part of something bigger, and gained a lot of respect from people, and was treated with respect back. And the other thing that I owe so much to my career is listening. I was a sponge. Whatever you had to say, I took something and I did it with it. And I could tell you, and I raised my 2 boys this way, and my daughter the same. I don't care if it's the president of a company or president of the United States or the guy sweeping the street. Every one of them has something to add. And if you take that bit that they have and you magnify it and you put another spin on it, it gets somewhere. Problem is, people don't always have the opportunity to go to the next level, right? And as my mom used to say, there's a lid for every pot. Some people, we know the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
But, some people are just happy in their steady go fast, 9 to 5, and that wasn't me. It's still not me,
Sure. That's amazing. I think that's a huge part of when we were kind of talking about your background and you said humble beginnings. Ralph, that was the person that made you believe, because you seem like a self-made guy. And I wonder, what are those? So there's Ralph. What are some of those? Are there other influences? Was it, because you seem like the kind of guy, you're a self-starter.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a self-starter. I mean, my father was a good influencer. He had a lot of great ideas, and I had a different way of doing them. And we always argued, which was the best thing. And, in family business, you take those arguments to the dining room table all the time. But I had a few people in my life like that, I watched and was inspired by, and just wanted to take things to the next level. And it's not that I wanted to be the owner. It's not that I just wanted to be very wealthy. It's not that I wanted to be, the big guy in town or any of that sort of stuff. I wanted to take a shot, And, sometimes, there's an old famous saying, right? Wayne Gretzky, famous hockey player. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? I think about that every day, right? Because if you don't take the stick and hit the puck, you never know whether you're getting it in the goal. So you got to take the shot.
Joe, I mean, that is so near and dear to my heart. Those are the kind of things that we talk about all the time here and just throughout my life, because you already got the no if you didn't ask. It's already a no right now, right? So, you don't really have much to lose. And understanding that in this life, you are only going to get what you go out and make happen, right? I tell my kids all the time, you got to be in the driver's seat of your life. You can't just be in the passenger seat going along, because somebody else will take you right along for the ride, right? So those are the kind of things that I appreciate you sharing. So kind of touching back on when you were growing up in Glen Cove, did you already know that building was kind of where you were gonna cut your teeth at? Did you have some of those other shots that you took in it that may not have worked out as much?
No, I never did anything but, hard work as a laborer, but I wanted to be a builder. Always wanted to be a builder. Always wanted to build communities and stand back and, be part of them from, I guess, the time I was playing with my little trucks at 2 years old in a dirt backyard, right?
Wow.
There wasn't, hey, I want to be a rocket scientist. I want to be, an engineer or a farmer guy or something like that. Like none of that. And to some extent, I wasn't exposed to a lot of that, right? So, I grew up in an area where this area in Glen Cove, okay, its population today is 28,000. Maybe back then when I was growing up, maybe it was 20,000, right? And if you took the phone book, remember we used to have phone books. People don't know that today.
Never heard of it.
There were 15, 18, 20 pages, Graziose. So all our Graziosis immigrated from Italy, just outside of Naples, and Sterno, which is the sister city to Glen Cove. Out of Glen Cove, in Glen Cove, growing up, every morning all you saw, landscape trucks leaving Glen Cove, concrete trucks leaving Glen Cove, construction trucks leaving Glen Cove, because that's where everybody was living.
Sure.
Because these immigrants came in, and this was their trade. bricklaying, landscaping, foundations and things of that nature. So it was my exposure, right? I was exposed to this, and I didn't know like what else there was, and by it, sort of led me to say that, this is the kind of stuff I want to do someday.
And then so you just took that and you kind of ran with it, and like you said, you overcame any of those limiting beliefs that people may have tried to prescribe to you, that you need to wait or you needed more time. You went in and you found the money, you got the dump trucks, and now when you're riding through some of these towns that you've developed projects in, when you're back in your hometown, I mean, my goodness, the projects that you've done in Glen Cove alone are just
Garvey's Point, yeah.
Amazing properties. Just to get a perspective, what are you seeing when you drive through a town, like Apex, for instance? What are you seeing when you drive through that other people may not be seeing?
Well, I'm going to take a half step back
just
for a second. I want to talk about what I see sort of after I get something started or get something completed, because you have to go into things with vision. With vision comes risk. We don't always get it perfect. I don't care who the best lawyers you have, engineers you have. At the end of the day, you have to be a visionary, right? And our company, RXR, and me in the position I'm in, we have to think very strategically and logically about, if you build it, will they come, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of funny because there's two parts of me that goes back to projects and looks around. The one part of me goes by projects that I've built over the years, and this big smile on my face, and I'm like, man, look at that. I did that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, especially when you're alone, you just sort of like, I did that, And then the kind of guy I am, I'll drive down. There's a project I built in downtown Glen Cove, and I live in Glen Cove, so I got to pass it all the time. And it's called Village Square, and there's a clock in the middle of it. And every time I see the clocks, I got the wrong time, man. And I make a phone call, I'm like, I want it perfect.
Yeah, let's get it right. That's
saying?
right. My name's on that.
But, going back to your initial question about Apex, as I mentioned to you, I came down here 4 years ago to look at this piece of property, which we call Veridea. It's about 1,200 acres that had been around for a decade and a half.
Sure.
The deal had kicked around. And I often tell the story of how, I came down with one of the partners, Todd, and one of my colleagues, Rebecca, and we rented a helicopter, because how else are you going to look at 1,200 acres? You certainly ain't going to walk it.
Sure.
And I'm afraid of snakes and stuff like that, so I wasn't going to ride a motorcycle or anything. So we got this helicopter, and we flew over it, we looked at it and everything. It was kind of cool, understanding where it was, 540, 55, 1, great location, You see a lot of water, a lot of streams and things of that nature, a lot of topo, a lot of change in grade, and those are challenges, And the other big thing, as I mentioned to you in our sort of debrief before this, our briefing before this, there was also no sewer, and I kind of went home, and I said to Scott, our CEO, and Mike, our president, I'm like, guys, nice piece of property, we can get it at a good deal, but a little problem here with the water on the site and the topo on the site, and by the way, there's no sewer, and I got the proverbial, come on, you know how to do this better than anybody, just go back and figure it out, And we started our meetings with the town, with the mayor, Jacques, with the individual council people, with the town staff, which is just incredible, really, and started to imagine it. And I always tell a story of sitting around, 20 people around a big table over in town hall, and they're looking at me with glazed eyes, like, here comes another one.
Sure.
But this one's from New York, and he's got a gravelly voice, here comes another one, gonna build something, And I'll tell you, from that day forward, they were believers. And the way that, I'm not going to say I won this in one day, but the way I won in this community and getting this community to embrace me, my colleagues, and RXR was to listen. Don't come into town with a bulldozer and just start bulldozing your way through because you've got money. Listen, what's good for you, mayor, council, town? What's good for you, citizens of Apex, right? And the one thing I wasn't, everybody that tried to do this deal, and I'm not knocking on the big national companies, were home builders. Guess what? I don't build houses, right? I'm a master developer, a planner, a visionary, right? I'm thinking about lifestyle. I'm thinking about retail. I'm thinking about education. I'm thinking about economic impact. And that's the package that's going to work best I mean, we're building a small city. It's 1,200 acres at the end of the day, you know?
Yes, no, it's definitely a city within a city.
And that was, our vision when we sat down, mapping things out. And okay, we could put houses here, we could put apartments there, we could put retail here. And then, here I am 4 years later, and you've heard some of the other announcements that we could touch on, but that came into pass, so it's really happening.
It's been amazing. I mean, I totally have had conversations. I've been here for almost 20 years now, and my partners and I, we do development in this local area, and that is a huge conversation. We've been hearing about that piece of land for almost 20 years since we got here.
Yeah.
And the challenges and the infrastructure and the legal and the planning and the zoning and and people don't always hear that side of the story about the risk that you take on a project like this, that others have taken the same risk and unfortunately did not finish and complete. What's going on over there in terms of timelines? Do we have anything that we can kind of look forward to in the very near future? Because people are asking, I've got people that want to know when, I just recently toured one of our other master plan communities with my wife. She said she didn't understand. She said, well, what is this? I said, let's go over. Let me show you. I mean, you talk about work, play, live. What you're building here in Apex is work, play, heal, learn, shop. When you're undertaking such a huge project that is going to span over 10 years, how do you mitigate some of those risks? What do you do, to make sure that the process and the plan of today is going to make it through to the end?
Mm-hmm. And so what I would say, speaking to planning and then speaking to timing. So the first thing any master development has to undertake, obviously, is infrastructure, right? Water, sewer, roadway networks, et cetera, et cetera. If you drive by our site today on 55, you'll see work going on 55, so we can improve that piece of the roadway, which we worked out with the North Carolina DOT. And what you'll also see is roadway systems going in, water and sewer systems going in, to the tune of probably, we've got about 120 million in infrastructure that we put in. You can't get in to build until you have a network, right? The other thing that we did to, shall I say, offset risk and timing, right, is we thought strategically about land sales. One of the first land sales I made here was to Dr. Rawls over in Wake Tech.
Sure.
They bought a piece. And what I liked about that, and I've said this many times to people in front of people in public, is that, as you know, we have this sort of definition of what we call superstar regions, EDS, MEDS, and well-leds. And when we came down here and Dr. Rawls approached me with his team and said, this is even before we closed on the property, I'd like to put a Wake Tech campus, 3,000 student Wake Tech campus.
Wow.
I, honest to God, sat in a conference room with him in a hotel, and we made the deal that day. It was just like done. I said, I want that flag, right? And the next deal I did, right, was an elementary school pad for 700 student element. It'll probably sit there for 5 or 7 years, but they got it. So when the rooftops come, there's a place kids go to school. I recently announced, and it was in TBJ, picked it up last week or the week before, we sold 250 acres to Lennar.
Exactly.
And Lennar is going to they have permitted, done already, full permits, ready to go, 1,100 front doors. So there's townhomes, single-family homes, stacked townhomes, et cetera. And then we had a groundbreaking, because we'll build multifamily and retail. So we had recently a groundbreaking a few months ago for what we call Summit House, which is going to be our
Yes.
first multifamily 291 unit development.
Yes, I saw that.
We've broken ground already on the south side of 540 on 2 industrial pads, so about 213,000 feet, 2 buildings, 100,000, 115,000 of industrial on the roof, 38-foot clear.
Mhm.
A lot of people down here call it flex space, where it could be divided up, etc. So we got those parts and components going. And, late last year, I guess late summer it was, we had made this deal with UNC and Duke, who partnered to create NC Children's, North Carolina Children's.
Let's just stop for a second and just give it up for that. That is amazing. I mean, we're talking about a standalone children's hospital right here in the heart of Wake County, where we're going to be attracting. I mean, can you imagine the people that are going to be served by something like that? Second largest in the country, is my understanding it's going to be. And being able to serve the citizens and the residents in this community with a facility like that, access to something like that, is so huge. And I think it's something that people can't even wrap their minds around right now, of what that's going to be like for this community and the benefit that we'll see from that.
No, it's true. And as we, as the master developer, work with the children's team and the town, I mean, just literally a month ago, we spent a bunch of time sort of thinking through bus routes. Even though the bus isn't there today, we're planning for it because we know we've got to plan ahead, right? And I admire the town for some of their, shall I say, insistent on us kind of moving along a path. It's kind of funny because I joke about it, but we're building the pad for the bus stop, but we're not putting the cover because there's no bus,
You can't put that.
I'm just afraid someone's gonna hang out there.
No, this is just amazing, and those are some of the things that I really would like for you to share and talk about, because the vision to see what a town could be, right? You're not just building homes, you are building the future for Apex. And you've got Lennar, they've got 1,100 homes they're going to build. I mean, are we going to have any other builders in there? You got me. We're looking for some scoop. What's the scoop now? Are we going to allow some other builders?
We're gonna
That's
allow,
a lot for one guy to try.
We're going to allow anybody. I have a lot of property left. Okay?
That's what I'm thinking.
Let's be clear on that,
That's what I'm thinking.
Look, at the end of the day, it's economics, right? It comes down to economics. I've got to get all this infrastructure paid for. So, I got to sell land and make returns so that I can, get returns to my investors and make sure that,
That makes sense.
as Scott says, doing good and doing well equals doing better, right?
That's right. I've seen a lot of that. And I have been listening a lot. Speaking of Scott Rector, you're a CEO there at RXR. I've been listening a lot to some of the information that Scott has been kind of putting out there. And so,
He's got a great podcast that he does as well.
He does well. They do really. It was super interesting. He talked a lot about coming out of some of the challenges in that COVID time frame, and us being in sort of a new normal right now, and being able to operate within that chaos and have, to be able to stand in that chaos is one of the things that he spoke about. I know he talks about Scottisms, right? He's got some Scottisms and stuff like that. But he told a story about when the times were challenging, and he looked toward the company Kodak, who had come to an impasse where they had almost 2 separate companies, where you have the physical and the digital, and they had to make a decision in where they were going to go. And, they kind of separated it. And Scott saw to do that same thing with RXR. And what are our assets that are future facing and more of a digital type of asset for us? When you're in that environment and you're dealing with some of these individuals, these may be legacy talents, and you, like you said, humble beginnings, but you're right there in the locker room with all the greats right there. It's an all-star game and you guys are all there. What is that like, being in that environment and being around those type of individuals, Scott and Mike?
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's very intense. I'll certainly say that. But, you know, one of the reasons I'm here at RXR and still here at RXR is the ownership and the way they treat their people. And I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for 400, 500 people at the end of the day. These guys treat us like family. And we're not always perfect. We make mistakes, but they treat us like family. They think out of the box. They include everybody in things, you know. But when I have my moments, right, where I'm just one-on-one with these guys over real strategic stuff, you know, it could get heated up, you know, and, you know, they expect me to deliver. And, you know, I got to deliver with challenges that hit you, like COVID.
Sure.
You know, I had all these buildings going up with COVID. And all of a sudden, you know, I had to put hand sinks in and take people's temperatures.
Wow,
I mean,
the whole landscape,
you know,
completely changed.
I told you when we were talking, I have adult children, but I have a young one, 17 years old, my daughter, Isabella. And I said to Isabella, I said, this is the first thing that you and Daddy are going to go through together that Daddy has no experience. Right?
Wow.
We never experienced a pandemic.
We're both flying blind on this one, right? Certainly.
We know how to figure this out, you know?
Wow.
And you know, look, at the end of the day, staying hungry and staying humble, as Scott says, and it's sort of my theme too, because of my upbringing, where I come from. You're always protecting the nest, but you're not afraid to let the bird fly. Huh? Protect the nest, but, you know, we go out for a spin, come back, we keep protecting the nest. And when we're out for that spin is when we're taking chances, right?
Certainly.
And we're looking at things, we're trying, you know, because some people tell you, know, I built the Ritz-Carlton in New York and Long Island, 240 units.
That's North Hills, right?
Yeah, $600 million in sales between two highways, Long Island Expressway and the Grand Central Parkway. And everybody said to me, Joe Graz, a lot of people call me Joe Graz. Joe Graz, are you out of your mind? Who in the heck's going to buy there in between two highways? Well, mind you, it's all sold out. But when we do, you know, the card after you close, a little questionnaire, you know, number one reason they bought was brand, Ritz-Carlton. Number two, was location.
They want to be right on those highways. They want to get in and out the city, right?
I mean, I have the luxury of living on the water in Glen Cove. Beautiful. I was a half hour away from the highway, you know? I mean, so, you know, you got to give up some things for that sort of thing.
No,
but
I think there's a huge something to be said for having those different perspectives in the room when those decisions are being made, right? Okay, so we were kind of talking about Veridea and what's going on and some of the stuff that's going to be happening in there. Could you speak a little more to some of the green spaces in the parks and one of my favorite things I've heard you talk, the tunnels and all? I mean, I just love the idea of what this is going to look like. I can't wait to see it. So can you speak a little bit to that?
In working with, and I said this earlier, and I want to make sure I emphasize it because it is extremely important. When we work with the town is not, and I've said this in public, in front of the town leadership, you know, the staff at the end of the day, they're not just laying down because we're the big bad wolf of Veridea, you know? They want certain things and they want to make sure it happens. And whether it's parks and rec or roads or infrastructure, et cetera, a lot of conversation goes on, a lot of negotiation, right? When you talk about, for instance, Wake Tech is going to border a road called Forest Light Way. And just north of Forest Light Way will be sort of shops and retail and things of that nature. Technically, it's walkable. And we want to try to create a walkable community or bike community. We have a lot of side paths and things like that. And when we were with the town, they were like, oh, you got to build a tunnel under this. I said, a tunnel? You know, like,
Wow,
you know,
this was the town's idea.
Yeah, instead of a crosswalk.
Sure.
Because, you know, they want to keep pedestrians safe, you know. And again, as I said earlier, in the push-pull, right? I mean, I might have said no 3 times, but at the end, tunnel's in already. You know what I'm saying? and then further to that, right?
Let's give it up for the town. Let's give it up for the town. Looking out for the
because
citizens.
Believe you me, I have my moments, okay? But they are a great staff. They do a great job. And we're blessed. You're blessed. This town is blessed to have them. And I'm blessed to have them because they help me get things moving and get things done.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed about, since you've been here, and that's, we talk about you speaking at different events and going to talk to the kids. You're one of the most visible VPs that I've seen, and you're really hands-on and you're in the community. I'm starting to think like maybe you're starting to get that bug a little bit like we got, it kind of gets in your heart a little bit what we've built here. And so when we start to talk about new, right? Some people are excited for opportunity. Some people concerned about losing the things that make Apex what Apex is. When you're building these tunnels and this infrastructure, what else is in it for the people who are already here, for the residents that already live here?
Well, I mean, there's a whole host of things, but let's just talk about a couple, right?
Please.
First of all, there is a huge economic impact to this community. And I'm going to say it this way because I believe it. And if you own a home in the vicinity and we develop, we'll be about a $7 billion project, including the hospital. Your value of your home's only going up.
Yes.
Okay. So number one, you're getting an economic impact, right? People are short-sighted with that, but that's real, right? The other thing we're doing in concert with the town is we've committed, recent public meeting that I was at, we've committed to build a 25,000 square foot recreational facility for town of Apex. That's for the town. That's
awesome.
Just not the development. And we've taken about 5 miles of green space around these big ponds, retention ponds, and we're creating nodes and like little park areas. And what we've done is we will be legally transferring a easement right to the town for their utilization while we maintain it. So they won't even have to cut the grass, sweep, pick up the trash, any of that sort of stuff. It'll just be town space. And lastly, we've agreed with the town. This is all in the last 6 months, a lot of stuff going on. We're going to be constructing what I call, some of the people call it something else, but I'm going to tell you what I call it, a mobility station. A mobility station is, think of it as a transfer station at our cost, a couple $1 million, I don't know, where a large bus could come in, people get off, have some restrooms, some seating, and get on the small bus so that when the busing, I think, what do you call it down here, BTR, BRT, coming out
the
of
Apex bus, the BRT.
Yeah, and then, so eventually that bus is going to be, think about the hospital. You're going to have people coming out of the airport, and think about this bus. By the time this is all going to come together, and it's gonna, that bus will be at the airport grabbing people, go to the mobility hub. Mobility hub will go Apex bus right into the hospital, right? And if we're going to get you there faster, by the way, we're building a helipad too, and we have the right to do that. So we'll be able to land a helicopter there too.
No, this is
so if we need that, but again, it's when you ask a loaded question like what's in it for Apex.
That's right.
Look, I've been doing this for 45 years. Okay. And at the end of the day, I could tell you, I got a lot of gray hair as a result of the people that, don't like development,
Yeah.
But I always tell a story. It's a great story. I love this story. When I was doing Garvey's Point, and you can go back and do your research on that, it was a super fun site. Okay, meaning it was contaminated.
That's right. That was where they
lead tungsten. Okay, we're talking about radioactive dirt. My friends in Apex, not here at Apex, by the way. This is in New York.
Yes,
seriously, clear on that.
Yeah, Long Island.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but my point is, we built a 1.3 mile esplanade, bike lanes, walking path, bulkhead, on the water, right?
Wow.
And we were sued 5-6 times through groups that got together to try to stop the project. And I mean, out there hooting and hollering with signs and what's called Article 78's temporary restraining orders, so on and so forth. And I laugh every day because I go down there on a weekend. We built a brewery, and those same people are walking that Esplanade with their baby carriages or walking their dog, and they're back to being friends. You know,
Sure.
The people say to me, there was a woman who just passed away, Amy, and I feel terrible for her. She was one of the leaders of, let's go get Joe. Let's go
Sure.
get RXR. And when we were done, she ran something called Roots Market, a farmer's market. And I let her run the farmer's market from my new Garvey's Point.
Of course.
And people said to me, she fought you for 7 years. I said, look, it is what it is, right? Stay humble. You never know what's going to come around.
No, when you do the right thing, sometimes I know from serving on boards like yourself, and just whenever you raise your hand to represent any group of people or to do anything, you're going to have half of the people against you. And so that brings me to a big point. Here in our town council meetings, we have had conversation, and some of the worry and concern has been around if or how the people can get transparency in what's going on. So they may not know exactly what's happening, and that may lead to concerns, or like you say, there may be some, hooting and hollering, when in actuality, it could be something that people would be for and be beneficial, but they may not have all the information.
Yep.
How do you handle transparency and keeping the local town and community abreast of what's going on?
Multiple ways, right? One in particular that you had mentioned a little bit earlier, and I appreciated it, the comment about I may be getting a little stuck to this place down here. I put a lot of time and energy in here. And the reason I do is because it's necessary. It's not because my team's not the best team, my engineers aren't the best engineers. It's necessary to sit in this barbershop with you today. I flew down yesterday, not just for this, but I came down because of this invitation, because of transparency. I want to be able to get on your podcast, and I want to be able to talk to the people of Apex and the other listeners. Secondly, we're in
we
constant...
appreciate that. We really do.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, these are some of the mediums in the new normal that we're in, and this is how people get their news and their information now. So you coming to sit with us in front of people, we really appreciate that.
And when there is an invitation that comes my way. I'm back down here speaking at some forum on Thursday. I mean, there's not an invitation that comes my way that I say no to, unless it's, something I just can't do because of, work-related issues or family or something like that. But let's go through a few of the ways, we keep everybody abreast, right? So my being local and being around people all the time, we have an every other week meeting with the entire town staff, and then a monthly in person. It's about an hour and a half long. There's about 22 people in the room, me, my staff, everybody, and up to speed. Where are we on the project? What's coming next? Where are we going with this? So on and so forth. Similar with the hospital people, which have been, apologize, hospital friends, have been a real time suck for me lately because, they take a lot of time, we have a
Things
week.
don't move as fast,
Yeah,
right?
and we have a weekly with them, right? And in working with that. Further, we just recently, I think it was this week, Monday, launched a new LinkedIn page where people are posting, what's going on the site. We use social media. We have websites, that people can go to. And the other thing, and I'm really proud of this, you weren't in my office in Apex, were you?
Not yet, no.
So my office is walking distance from here.
Yes.
At 209 North Salem. I rent the third floor, nice big space up there. And I built it, well, a couple things. First of all, I promised the mayor and the town, if I'm coming down here, I'm driving a stake in downtown Apex until my land's built. Obviously, I'm going to move on my own land. I don't promise things that I don't deliver. So we have that space there. And we work there. Like my colleague Will's with me this week. He's working there right now. I'll be back there a little bit. We had some meetings this morning there. But you know what I do with that space when it's idle? I give it to the public. You know who the public is? Chamber of Commerce, right? Rotary Club, the high school athletic director, fire department, police department, town staff. No cost. I just ask, clean up when you're done. But you could have a 100-person presentation in the space. I've had 70-person type presentation in the space. And at the same time, the space is designed where I'm telling my story on big video screens
Sure.
that my staff and my team will make sure are all turned on. So now I'm bringing in, and then what we do is we update that almost every other month with live pictures from the site, so people can actually
Sure.
see what's going on, you know?
So when you're in there, it's kind of interactive. You're seeing where the project is.
Exactly.
That's
And
awesome.
again, it's another way of giving back to community, right? You mentioned this before, I don't know, a month ago, and I did this last year, I did it this year. I have the luxury of speaking, I don't know, maybe 40 juniors, Apex High School juniors, you know? And, you know, it was just, I talked to them about my story. I talked to them about if you wanted to be in the development business, you ever thought that you want, right? The thing that I didn't have somebody say to me, right?
Yeah.
This is really coming all full circle. And I had like 4 or 5 students come up to me after and said, you know, I really want to be in the development business, you know? And I gave them my personal cell phone number and I connected them with my assistant. And I said, you know, when the summer comes, I'll find some time where you can spend a couple days with me and, you know, trail me and stuff like that. Like, you know, and this is not just, and some people may say, you know, you're going to show up here and you're going to show up there, you know, it's to your benefit. I'll be down here in April for Pig Fest. I'm a sponsor.
Yeah.
Peak Fest,
Peak
I'm a
Fest.
sponsor. Earth Day, I'm a sponsor. I'm not just a sponsor because I want to be recognized as somebody that's throwing money at the town. No, I have a booth. I staff it. We tell our story, right? This is transparency.
I believe
right?
that you guys have done an amazing job.
Ain't nobody else
of getting
doing
involved. When, like I said, when it's not just a check, you're not just writing a check. You're here.
Anybody
you're
can
in
do
the
that.
community, and it means a lot to us, you know, because people can put a face to the project. People can hear what you're talking about, and when I hear you talk and I see the passion and the drive that you have, you know that this is not just one of many projects, right? This is something that you really
Special.
taking a hold of yourself. So we
And look, I
appreciate
mean,
that.
for me, and everybody in my team and even my family laughs about it because they say I'm never going to retire, but it's probably my legacy because it's so big, you know? And I've already picked a few spots where I want the rock with my name on it someday.
Yeah, of course.
You
I
know?
saw, what was that at the one of the groundbreakings, the big thing? I saw you on kissing that thing, man.
Oh, yeah.
I saw you're in.
I'm
You're
in.
all the way in.
I could be real intense, you know. My staff puts up with a lot of, you know, quite intense moments and stuff like that. But it's all because of the passion, you know.
And they say it's
just
the
the passion.
people who are crazy enough to think that they could change the world
Yep.
who usually do.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
so we appreciate that, man. And I can relate to that, what you were talking about earlier, just about, you know, the humble beginnings or not having that background or what. A buddy of mine asked me, he goes, Andre, if the vice president of General Motors position was available, you would go for that position. And you know you don't know how to do it. Because what is it about you that would make you think that you could go and do that and put yourself in that position? I said, well, the one thing you got to understand is that there's probably 100 people at General Motors who could do that position. What they need is someone who can lead the people and get everybody on the same page and be transparent and put their passion and their heart on the line so that there's someone that people could believe in when times get tough, when that chaos starts to happen. So
No, it's lead.
it means
It's
a
lead
lot.
by example, and I'm not going to pick on companies in any way, shape, or form on this forum that you've invited me to. But it doesn't matter New York or here. I notice it more here, to be honest. But where very senior leadership of companies are leaving people working from home. I don't think working. I'm going to say it on your show.
Mhm.
I don't think working from home is healthy. Okay, I just don't. I don't think there's any opportunity for camaraderie. I don't think there's a day a week or something like that. You want to have some of the stuff, but this COVID, right? Everybody started working from home, and it's like, okay, I get it. I mean, I don't think I ever really worked from home. I was in a secret hiding spot when COVID came, but I think we were supposed to work from home. But I was in a secret hiding spot.
You were in the.
I was in one of these job trailers, you know.
I
hung out
believe it.
there, you know. But anyway, my point is that what we're doing, like what we're seeing in New York, is people coming back to work because we're leading by example. We were probably our building was one of the first buildings, you know. We were back to work, but we're amenitizing these buildings more, so that people are coming back to work and they have amenities and things like that. But
Bingo.
I was downtown Raleigh, you know, a couple weeks ago. I don't see a lot of people having lunch and stuff like that because a lot of these buildings, you know, people just aren't, you know, coming back to work and stuff like that. And,
People don't understand how things are interconnected. And we have had some time now challenges with downtown Raleigh and getting that to revive it and revitalize it. And a big part of that is just that the new normal that we're in is not such that people are taking the lot of what we've done is taking some of the camaraderie out of the jobs, and everybody's here to just kind of do a job. And that doesn't always lead itself to being the most productive for everybody. Right. So I know exactly what you mean. But in this new day and age where we got people that, you know, everybody's on video and everybody's kind of separated, these opportunities here, I think mean a lot.
Yeah, I don't know about your good self, but I don't have any phone calls anymore. They're all Teams or Zoom or whatever. Whether they really need to be or not, I don't know. But remember the old days of conference calls. You never really knew who was listening, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so the Teams calls, you know, people go off camera or whatever, or they're muffled, you know, it does help. Help, okay?
It definitely adds some,
you know, you
some
can read
personality.
body language and stuff like that, I think. But to me, there's nothing like face to face, you know.
This is what we're doing here today. I think will resonate with the community. What we heard back from a lot of the feedback from the podcast is just that these stories and understanding what goes into the decision making and the risk, these mean a lot to people, and it helps to pull people together in a way that we can all kind of be getting a little piece of that ambition that you have, a little piece of that enthusiasm we can kind of grab a little hold to.
Right.
And as we wait to see things happen, like I said, we're starting to see things coming out the ground now. I was just driving by there, and you know, when you looking by the little fence and you're starting to see those huge infrastructures and sewers and things that are going in, and you know, it's just a matter of time before, you know, I always talk about the development process very much so a hurry up and wait kind of process, right? So we rush, and then you don't see much, and then boom, you know, things start coming out the ground.
Right.
So.
People don't believe that you're building unless they see something vertical, right? When, you know, well, everything underground is not so sexy, but you can't, it's your heart, it's your lungs, it's your vessels, it's your liver, right? Without all that, the body's not going to work, you know? No, I want to go back to something that you said. Sure. Just
please do.
Whether it's part of the show or it isn't part of the show,
please.
I think just something resonated with me that you said, and that was that friend asked you if VP for General Motors was available. You know, was it something that you think you could do or you'd go after? So the reverse of that, I'm not afraid to be back where I was, in the sense of I'll take the risk. I'll take the risk. You know, my sons, and God, they'll love this if they see this clip. I always say to them, they always say to me, Dad, you love expensive wine. I said, damn straight I do. I said, and I always say, but I could go back. And they said, no, you can't. I said, yes, I can. There's some good wine that's not that expensive. Gonna get me the same feeling at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
No,
but you can't. Look, you have to be smart. You have to be witty. You have to be hungry, right? You've got to want it. But you can't be afraid, right? Because you go into something afraid, you're going to fail. You're going to fail, right? And you put the force behind you that you know you have, and then you build a team around that.
I don't believe that there is anything that is above a focused, motivated mind, right? We have a coaching platform that we called No SMB, No Small Business, right? We don't believe in small business. No such thing as a small
Right.
business. Everybody's got to do
Business.
the same thing. We got to do the same process, KPIs. Everybody, if you're thinking it's a small business, because you just have the small thinking, right? And so this is what it takes to have the kind of vision to create an entire city, to talk about retail and shops and who are we bringing in and who fits in the vibe that we are trying to create. I know one of the things I've heard you speak about is how impressed you were about our downtown area here and wanting to recreate that vibe in some kind of way, shape, or form over in Veridea.
In today's standard, right?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, y'all are working on the street out here, and
Yeah, this is 1873 here right now.
No, I know. But what impresses me I shouldn't say little, but downtown Apex, okay, is the sort of, all the little ownerships of the shops and stuff like that. I'm going to have local, I'm going to have national, and I'm going to have regional, right? You got to have that blend at the end of the day, If I tell you the phone does not stop with inquiries for our project, we can't keep up with it. That's And
have you made any decisions on that? Or do you already have? I mean, I'm sure you have an idea, but
so I'll tell you what we're close to.
Okay, come on.
I'll tell you what we're close to, but I can't give names out. So
okay.
We're close on a grocer. Okay, we're close on a hotel. Okay,
right.
Very close. Okay, we're very close on a couple of what I'll call anchor office tenants above our retail. And we've got letters of intent out, to 15 different, restaurants and food type situations, and we're just working through that process,
That's awesome.
So, look, you got to put the right blend in, and you got to be smart about it. And, you don't want to get, want high risk tenants, you don't want, again, use the proverbial, there's a lid for every pot. So there's a place that, what we call a merch plan, and we work collectively with our teams. And the other thing is we team up with people here.
That's what I love to hear, that, because you're not just always looking to, when we spoke, you said that it's not that you have a product and you're looking for a place to put that product. It's that you are seeing an opportunity in a place that meets what you think is a thriving community. Those eds, meds, and well-leds, the education, the medical aspect, and the leaders in our communities. Who are those people? Is it a static thing where you say, I want to talk to the mayor, I want to talk to the town council and the mayor, or is it in each place a different, more organic type of leadership?
Yeah, it's more organic than specifically that. But what I like to do is I like to get an understanding from the town what they're looking for, because I work very closely with Joanna Holmes, who's the director of economic development, because she gets a lot of inbounds from county and state. Inbounds meaning people are looking to come to Apex. They're looking for dirt.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So she'll call me or my team and say, hey, guys, I got this call or I got that call. So I like to understand, that relationship. And then, we've established relationships with local people here. One in particular that is Grubb Ventures, Gordon Grubb and his team. They're in the same business we are. They're collaborating with us ultimately to essentially be the operator of all this. So we have that collaboration going on with them on a daily basis, getting their intel to, what they did at Raleigh Iron Works or what they did in some other areas, what worked, what didn't work, right? So lessons learned, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because as we talk about our just, a couple steps around the corner, our new downtown and the construction that we have going on and how beautiful this is going to be, I speak a lot to Raleigh Iron Works and how I think it will be similar and that type of thing. So I love, Honky Dory Record Store and all this. We've got a certain type of vibe that we built, and to be able to hear you talk about wanting to contribute to that and not just bring something that is already prepackaged, but build something that is organic.
Exactly, and get people thinking from the bottom up instead of the top down, right?
Sure. Get that buy-in.
Exactly, get the buy-in. Use the local brokerage firms. We were working with CBRE and
Sure.
Cushman Wakefield, and
and we've got some great local brokerages like Society Real Estate. We would love to talk to you. We're not plugging anything here, but no, I mean, just to see you in the community is a huge excitement, and to see you here and to know that you're accessible. And I mean, you got people, the students got your number. I mean, it's a whole buzz that's going on in the community right now, and it's palpable. And now that we're hearing the conversations more at the council, and they're keeping us abreast of what's going on, even talking about, Apex is a tight-knit community, right? When you hear about other communities that are protesting after things are in place, Apex is a little different than that, right? We get right on top of it. We get together. I mean, the data center, you hear about this data center, oh my goodness, that was like the biggest thing, like Mars is coming, crushing. But well-informed community, well-informed leadership, taken out in the streets, talking to people. The mayor's at Target talking to people about the data. It's a community that I think you guys are going to do well in, because you're taking that time to understand what people want. So,
right, and being accepted by the community, which acceptance is, the first piece of the puzzle, right?
No,
and
seriously.
People start to trust by using transparency, by talking to people, by coming on opportunities like this and getting our story out. And as that development grows and it goes vertical, I'm sure I'll be in the barbershop another time,
Yeah, listen, when the guys come back, we right now, what is the sign right behind us says, the Lawrence, what does the Lawrence say right here? Keeping Apex handsome. If you would, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you while we had you here, and it's something that I don't think people take the time to consider when maybe you look at this big machine and they're undertaking this huge project and 1 million square feet of retail and shopping. And, when you have all of these things happening, what is the pressure that you feel when you are directing and developing the future of a community? What kind of pressure is that on you?
Well, it's a lot of pressure, and my personality isn't good for that, because I take everything really personal, and I'm accused often by, the partners and my colleagues, don't take that personal, don't take it personal. I do take it personal. It's hard not to take it personal, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not operating on somebody. I'm not going to, be that person that could save somebody's life. But I could be in building communities. I can be sort of the person that can help somebody's life, create a place to live, create a community, create areas, create jobs, right? So I look at that and I say, right, that's sort of the offset to, being in the development business. I get this great joy of that economic stimulation, right? But when we're at the planning table and we're saying, well, let's put a supermarket here and let's put a multifamily building there and let's put the hospital over here, right? Hey, there's no crystal balls. It's experience. Experience comes into play when, you have all the experience and experienced people around you, right? Smart people around you that you hire, whether it's economic, whether it's planning, whether it's, sewer, water, civil. You put the right people around you, and you essentially sometimes hope a little bit too.
Sure.
It is sometimes.
I know they say, even, you talk about, like you said, there's a chaos, there's an ebb and flow of the thing. And, even when you are having the initial ideas, that's what the conversations are for, to adjust and, to make things.
Scott says it all the time to us, in the boardroom, right? Chaos before clarity, right? Yes, if it wasn't all mixed up, how would you be able to clear it up? I often say to people, when the sun's not out, well, we wouldn't know how good the sun felt if it never came out, right? So to be able to understand, the difference between, that opportunity where things are going well and knowing ahead of time when things may not be going well and pivoting, because nobody's perfect. Nobody, right?
No.
Well, we think we are, but we're not, right?
No, I think you guys, we all do our best, and we put our best foot forward. At the end of the day, I think like you said, watching, monitoring, understanding in this chaos, standing in the chaos, and then pivoting to what is that next direction and focusing on what is going to be kind of that digital, that future facing side, and being able to take some of the assets away from things that may not be part of where we're going is huge. With all of that we've talked about today, the amazing projects, Ritz-Carlton, waterfront communities. I mean, you're building luxury resorts in your own hometown. I mean, what's better than that? Everybody knows you. At this point, your son is president of the company. You've built a legacy. You're continuing to put projects like this on the ground. What does success look like now?
It's a very difficult question to answer because it in through life, and I'm sure you've had your own experience, successes are multiple in a sense, right? I've had a success here, I've had a success there. Scott has a saying that I often repeat, so I'm going to repeat it here. And he says that success is leased. You don't own success, and the rent is due every day. What does that really mean, right? We got to keep the pressure on to pay that rent to have that success, right? You can't just walk away from something. No, I have projects that I walk away from, I'm done, right? They're legacy projects. They feel, success. But for a good definition of success for me is that I was able to accomplish a real development that included all of the stakeholders, right? The people around it, the people in it, the people that come to it, right? The city and the townships and the counties that are, that I'm working with in it. If that can come together and we can get a sort of 85-15 split, you know what I'm saying? Where 85% of the people have that good feeling, because you can't make them all happy at the end of the day. But, I go to some of our projects that, we build, and especially in the rental side of business, and I see all these events we do and happy people, and that they're happy when they're renewing and they're not leaving, and you see the reports of people, and then, the other thing on success is, success is something that you sometimes take to bed with, right? And what I mean by that is I think the humbling feeling inside my heart sometimes helps me understand what success is. Did I have a successful day? Did I have a successful session with you? Little things like that may not mean that much, but to me, success is A, that I'm on the top of the ground, and B, that I can have my family around me all the time, and we can be together, because family to me is the most important thing. Despite my travel habits and things like that, my house is the place. I mean, that's where they all come. And they ain't bringing any food. I can tell you that.
Man, that is awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking this time to speak with us. I think you've answered a lot of questions for the town and for many people that are inquiring about such a huge project. And I definitely wish you guys the best. We're looking forward to keep seeing everything working the way you guys have done. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Still repping 919, the city is mine, and I put it all on the map. Coming for what I deserve, I put in the work, now I'm about to level up.